Hello students, today we are going to start with the most interesting chapter of your syllabus, that is chapter number 2, Age of Revolution. Before starting with this chapter students, let us understand the term called as revolution. Students, as everyone know, revolution is nothing but a change. According to me, revolution is nothing but a fundamental change brought about intentionally. But according to your textbook, it is nothing but an event which brings a radical change in human life. But in simple terms, it is nothing but a revolt against injustice. Let us understand the term revolution in a brief manner. Students, in 18th century, this 18th century was marked by the age of revolution. The period from 1750 to 1850 was termed by a period called as age of revolution. During this period, there occurred three types of revolution. First one is American Revolution, second one is French Revolution, and third one is Industrial Revolution. Students, always remember revolution occurs in three fields: political, economic, and social. American Revolution is nothing but a political revolution. French Revolution is nothing but a social revolution, whereas Industrial Revolution is nothing but an economic revolution. But today, we are going to learn what exactly happened in American Revolution. Students, so let us proceed further what happened in American War of Independence, which is nothing but an American Revolution. As I said you earlier, American War of Independence is nothing but a political change brought by 13 colonies against their own parent country, mother country called as England. So students, let us proceed further. After the discovery of America, many Europeans went and settled there permanently. As I said you earlier, Europeans discovered a new continent known as America, and slowly, Europeans started entering this newly discovered land, America. The first amongst them was England. Followed by England, there were countries like Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, and France. But England was the first country to enter into this continent. Once England entered, they founded 13 colonies in North America. Between 1607 AD and 1733 AD, they formed almost 13 colonies. Virginia was the first colony formed by England. Once England formed this colony, they started forming their own government. 13 colonies had 13 different rules, 13 different regulations, and 13 different government. The entire government was owned by England. Once England formed their government, they started dominating people living there. They forced people to grow crops which they want in England. Colonies living there were forced to grow crops which they wanted in England. Colonies were expected to sell their grains, tobacco, sugar to England, that too at a cheap rate. Students, it means that mother country imposed many of the restrictions on colonists. Students, these restrictions was very troublesome. Colonists were forbidden from producing goods competing with British goods. It means that colonists were not at all allowed to grow crops which competed British goods to avoid competitions. Students, England imposed duties. Two of these duties which was very troublesome was Tea Act and Sugar Act. And once this Tea Act and Sugar Act was imposed, these colonists were enraged on their own mother country. To get rid of this restriction, colonists united under the leadership of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. And this George Washington was appointed as a chief of military, and Thomas Jefferson drafted a declaration for these 13 colonies. Students, George Washington led his army to fight against his own mother country called as England. Students, let us understand what happened exactly. Before this war, there was an event occurred in Boston which was known as Boston Tea Party. As I said you earlier, there was a Tea Act imposed on colonists, due to which colonists were enraged. They didn't wanted this Tea Act to be imposed on them. They revolted against their own mother country. And this revolt was something different. Colonists made a plan that we are not going to consume tea henceforth. Let us do one thing. We'll stop consumption of tea and we'll start consuming coffee. This was the revolt which was done by colonists. But still, England sent 3 ships full of tea boxes. The ship named as Dartmouth, Eleanor and Beaver. England refused the colonists' demand of removing restrictions imposed on them. Colonists thought of boycotting British goods. Let us do one thing, we'll stop consuming British goods. This was the revolt made by colonists. But still, 3 ships came and landed in Boston Harbor Port. Once this 3 ship was landed in Boston Harbor Port, colonists started revolting. Let this ship go back. But England was adamant, ship remained at the same place. But this colonist made a plan and they stepped into the ship. Once they got into the ship, they threw all the 3 boxes into the Boston Sea, which costed around 18,000 pounds. And this 18,000 pounds was a loss which was borne by England government. And once this tea boxes was thrown into the Boston Sea, this event was declared as Boston Tea Party. And once this Boston Tea Party happened, England government was enraged on colonists. They made a plan that Boston Harbor will be closed for next 2 years unless and until colonists won't pay taxes. This was the clear-cut rules and regulation passed by British Parliament. And once this Boston Tea Party occurred, British colonists started revolting and they passed a slogan saying that no taxation without representation. As you know that British Parliament had their representatives from England. American colonists had no representatives in Parliament of England. Colonists said that Parliament of England had no right to enact law for colonies and no right to impose taxes on colonies. In simple terms, they started their slogan saying that no taxation without representation, and this slogan was said by a lawyer by profession, a person called as James Otis, which means that unless and until we don't have our representative in your parliament, we are not going to pay any of the taxes. Students, the picture indicates a revolt. If you can see, the picture has a hoarding saying that no Sugar Act, no Tea Act, no Stamp Act. This was the revolt made by colonists against their mother country called as England. Students, once this revolt was taking place, this demand was turned down and that led to a war between England and 13 colonies. Students, this war continued for almost 8 years. And when this war continued, the colonists were led by their own leader known as George Washington. As I said you earlier, he was appointed as a chief of military. Students, this war continued for almost 8 years. Before this war, there was a declaration drafted by 13 colonies. And this declaration was drafted by Thomas Jefferson. This declaration says that we owe to be self-true that all men are equal. When we are born, we are guaranteed with 3 rights, that is life, liberty and pursuit of happiness. These rights are unalienable rights of man, and these rights are given to us by a creator. If these rights are not protected in a proper manner, we have a moral right to overthrow that government and form a new one. And this is what we are going to do from today onwards. And this declaration was drafted on 4th of July 1776, a person called as Thomas Jefferson. Students, this war continued almost for 8 years. In 1783, England acknowledged independence of colonies. And once colonies got their independence, George Washington was appointed as the first president of America. And in 1789, the Federal Republic of America formed a country called as United States of America, which comprised of 13 states. Later on, more 37 states was added, and now USA comprises of 50 states. And USA was the first country to had its written constitution, and which was later followed by many other countries. And this American War of Independence proved to be an inspiration for revolution in France, and it also proved to be an inspiration for anti-colonial struggle. This is end of this chapter, that is American War of Independence. Thank you, students. Have a great day. Bye. Take care.